Part 2. The walls breathe. The second day in the Eldridge house began with a creeping sense of unease. I'd barely slept, and the whispers that had haunted the night still echoed in my mind. As I reviewed the footage over a lukewarm cup of coffee, I realized the whispers weren't just in my head, they'd been caught on tape. It wasn't the kind of audio distortion I could easily dismiss. The whispers were clear, their tone urgent yet incomprehensible. "I've got to find where this is coming from," I muttered to myself. Armed with a portable recorder, I began a methodical sweep of the house. The place felt different in the daylight, but not in a comforting way. Shadows clung to corners, and the wooden floorboards seemed to groan louder with each step I took. In one of the smaller sitting rooms, I found an old photograph on the mantel. It showed a family, parents, and 3 children posing stiffly in front of the very house I was now trapped in. The father's face was unreadable, his expression a mask of barely contained disdain, while the mother looked as if she was on the verge of tears. The children stared directly at the camera, their eyes hollow and lifeless. I turned the photo over and scrawled on the back were the words, "We only stay as long as we're wanted." "What the hell does that mean?" I whispered. The whispers returned that afternoon. I was on the 3rd floor, near a room I hadn't entered yet. The door to it was locked, and none of the keys I'd brought seemed to fit. But as I pressed my ear to the door, the voices grew louder, their tone urgent and desperate. "Help, please." Trapped, I jerked back, my pulse racing. Was someone in there? My rational mind told me it was impossible. This house had been abandoned for decades, but something about those voices felt painfully human. Determined to figure it out, I grabbed my camera and returned to the locked door with a crowbar I'd found in the basement.
"This is probably a terrible idea," I said to the camera, my voice trembling. With a groan and a loud crack, the lock gave way. The door swung open, revealing a small, windowless room. The air inside was suffocating, thick with a stench of decay that made me gag. At first, I thought the room was empty. Then I saw the writing on the walls. "Get out" was scrawled over and over. The words gouged deep into the plaster. Some were written in what looked disturbingly like blood, others in soot or charcoal. Beneath the layers of writing were claw marks, deep grooves that looked as though someone had tried to escape. I took a cautious step inside, my camera clutched tightly in my hand. The floor creaked ominously beneath me, and the walls seemed to close in. Then I saw it, a small pile of bones in the far corner. I stumbled back, nearly tripping over my own feet. They weren't human to small, too fragile, but something about them felt deeply wrong, like they didn't belong to any animal I could name. As I turned to leave, the door slammed shut behind me. The whispers erupted into a cacophony, filling the tiny room with their frantic cries. My flashlight flickered, and the air grew colder. I banged on the door, yelling, "Let me out." Then, just as suddenly as it had started, the noise stopped. The door creaked open on its own, revealing the hallway bathed in the dim light of the setting sun. I bolted out of the room, my chest heaving. "Whatever's in this house," I said to the camera once I'd caught my breath. "It's not just a ghost, it's something worse." That night, I barricaded myself in the master bedroom. I kept the lights on and my equipment running, desperate to capture any signs of what I'd experienced earlier. At 3:03 a.m., the whispers returned, but this time, they came from inside the room. I spun around, my camera trembling in my hands, but there was no one there. And then, in the mirror above the dresser, I saw a shadowy figure standing just behind me. Its face was featureless, but its presence was suffocating. I whipped around, but the room was empty. The whispers turned into laughter, low and guttural. The walls began to creak, as if the house itself was mocking me. I knew then that it wasn't just a visitor in this house. I was a prisoner, to be continued.